morning, everyone. Just for the records, we want to say that today's taping is taking place in the library of the Parson Caton House, and the purpose of the interview is to talk to Alice and Tom Pierce about their recollections of when they were associated with the Proctor estate. And before we get started, I would like to introduce members of the Historical Records Committee, and Jean McDougall and Yolanda Marciano, and my name is Dorothy Leach, and we have Alice Pierce and Tom Pierce who came up from Danvers this morning. Now, as an observer of the tape, we have Stina McDougall, who heads up the Audubon effort over at the Proctor estate, and she's here to see what she can find out what happened many years ago. Now, I also want to ask everyone, this is a very informal session, so please feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about, and if we can't think of enough things, I'm sure that you can add to many memories of your time spent over on Tom Proctor's estate. I guess we ought to start in, Tom, and ask, do you remember when you first started to work for Mr. Proctor?
Well, I started as a boy part-time as a teenager. And then when I went to school, I used to work summers and school vacations.
Where did you go to school?
At the academy, Topsfield Academy. I graduated from there in 1930. And then in 1930, I worked steady to 42 in Mr. Proctor. And I was born and brought up in Topsfield. I was sitting in 31 years on the estate. My father started for Mr. Proctor in 1908, and he worked 39 years. He was the farm foreman over there. In fact, he had quite a few duties. When he first came here, they had a large herd of Guernsey cows, and he worked in the dairy. He made their own butter, and they sent cheese, milk, and they were sent into Boston to some more of his family. And then the dairy was closed up for a few years. And then Mr. Proctor bought a large herd of Angus Aberdeen beef cattle. And that's where you probably noticed that Great Hill was all fenced in. From North Street, where Mr. Steffington had the houses all built, that was all fenced in from there right down to the Lawrence estate. And then, in fact, all of High Street, practically to Perkins Road, was all Mr. Proctor's property.
Was Great Hill forested, John?
Great Hill was forested. And he had that's one of the places he stocked his cow, had his cows. And he also had the cows over on North Street. I believe the name of Mr. Coran or something. And at one time, when he started his cattle, he sent a man to Chicago to the cattle show, and they bought the prize bull. And then they brought him back. I remember him coming in with a flat car.
Came into Topsfield?
Yes.
Yeah. How much did he pay for the prize bull?
I don't know that time. So then I say, other than working around the estate, I worked at the rock garden, I worked in the garage, I worked in the greenhouse. In my later years, I worked in the stable. And years back, when Mr. Steffington built them houses back there, that was a polo field. had big, and the other polo field was over on Perkins Road.
Well, that's what I remember as a
Perkins
kid
Road.
when we used to walk over there
That's
by
right.
the poor farm.
That's
They
right.
call
Back
that
of the
Candle
polo field.
Field.
We called that the polo field.
Yeah.
Well, the other polo field was a big field off North Street there, between Route 1 and you know where the mill is, where the mill was by the brook.
The Donaldson Mill down there on the Ipswich Road.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's just beyond that is where the big pump house and stuff was
Right. Oh.
to keep the polo field.
Well, I never knew there was another polo field.
Well, yeah. But that was the early 90s, I believe, that they played polo.
Did he have many polo matches? Did who came? Like people from Myopia? Or?
Yes, different Wednesday, yes. Hamilton, Wenham, Ipswich. Used to come. And at one time, where the bull farm is, that was full of polo ponies. Not just his, but other ones besides. And then the big stable up near the greenhouses. You remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
He had, I believe, 15 ponies up there.
They're quite a stock.
That place, that stable was kept as clean as a house. Once a month, all the stalls completely cleaned out. It was all washed down. I remember at that time, we used to buy the big boxes of gold dust.
What's gold dust?
The same idea as rinso and that stuff.
Oh, okay. Right. Well,
And with a big broom, coarse broom, and the floors were all scrubbed down. And in each stall, everything else, there was a drain. And everything was cleaned up. And it was all washed and hosed down. That place, I say, you could eat off the floor. It was so clean.
how many help did he have in the barn?
At that time, maybe there's only two. I went up there and used to work there too, I say. And when I first started as a teenager, there was the stable man's name was Mr. McFarland. And he used to pay me to shine the brass. All from all them stalls, beautiful brass, and brass all around everywhere. He used to pay me out of his own pocket to clean the brass. Then I started to work summers and vacations in 1928. I started working in 1936 to 42.
Did you see much of Mr. Proctor when you worked there, Tom?
Oh yes.
Was he around the barns a lot?
Well, I say when I was in the stable, working in the stable, he used to go riding every morning. And Mr. Wall, who was the butler at that time,
Bertha's father.
that's his father, would call out in the stable, telephone to the stable, and he was going to go riding that morning. He had to get his horse ready for him. And then when the time for him to go out, the telephone would ring and they'd bring the horse out to him. And he had a mountain stool out in front of his house that he used to get up on to get on everything. And then he used to ride around all his bridle paths. And he had a bridle path all the way from the Perkins Road, right straight through almost to the Lawrence estate. They cut trees, they scented trees out all the way. And we used to ride on that. And then around the rock garden, all that. The mill, you know where the mill was?
The mill, you don't mean the Donaldson Mill?
No.
The mill at the over at Proctor's estate?
This is the mill.
I don't know where that was.
You remember the blacksmith shop?
No?
Yeah.
Was that on Perkins Road?
No, that was down back in the farmlands, down by the rock garden.
Oh. Now, when you say farmhouse, do you mean where the Audubon is now,
No,
the old Pete Gilhooly house.
that used to be called the Bradstreet Estate.
Yeah.
And that's where Mr. Proctor lived first with his mother.
Right.
And then he came down and had his place built there. The other place.
Why did they ever tear that down?
Huh?
Why did they
I
ever
don't
tear
know.
that
Why
down?
did they ever tear that greenhouse down? He had 7 men. He had 5 men as gardeners in the greenhouse. He had a man take care of the lawns. Another man just on the vegetable gardens. He kept, well, we had 20 odd men there most of the time. Oh yeah. And then his sister, Mrs. Vandell, and
Now she lived in Boston, Tom,
at winter times,
on winter time.
you know where the Carmelite
In Boston?
Carmelite
In Hamilton.
in
Oh,
Hamilton.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was his sister's home.
I never knew that.
No, I didn't either.
And then James Proctor lived in Ipswich. And twice a week, they took flowers from the greenhouses, made a trip to Boston with the flowers. And they had big window boxes, and they take all the old plants out and redo them anew.
Talk about like a nurse.
Why I know that Mr. McGregor, Mr. Gloria McGregor's father,
Right.
He drove the flower truck most of the time. But when he was sick, they had me drive.
Now whereabouts in Boston?
Commonwealth Avenue,
Oh.
off Commonwealth Avenue.
What was Mr. McGregor's job there? His title?
What was his name?
I mean, like he did driving. Did he do other odd jobs?
No, he's mostly in the garage on.
In the garage.
Then I say different years and different ones came to work there.
When he started the rockery and he had all these people come there to work, where did those people live?
When the rock garden started, that must have been in the early 1900s. Because that was all there when I was there. Because I'm really a child. Up where the Audubon side is talking about the
Right.
house.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be sheds around the Arboretum buildings, 2 big buildings. And they had I understand at that time they had 25 or better help
Oh, you can live then.
that came in. And
Were these the Italian men that
Yes,
we read
Italians,
about?
that's
Yes, right.
they had big wooden wash tubs outside where they used to do their washing and stuff. Yeah. And they were the ones who worked at the rock garden and the Arboretum. And all them rocks in the Arboretum, the rock garden that's up there, that was all handmade. They had no machinery to put them up. How in the world they ever got them rocks up? That's all it's found in there.
Even around where the pond is, where the rhododendrons
That's
are.
right.
That's all.
Oh, they're huge rocks
That's
over
right.
there. I remember as a
It must have
kid.
been all block and tackle and something, that stuff, chain falls or something.
And they're paid. And we're paid.
Yeah. What about the pay?
Well, at that time, hay was not too heavy.
Yeah.
No, but when I worked there, I say, I think I got $100 a month. But with that $100 a month, I got my house. I got my heat
Where was your house?
at that time.
What shoemaker?
Shoemaker's Corner.
Shoemaker. Which house at Shoemaker?
Shoemaker house, and now the big Shoemaker house is torn down.
The one that was torn down?
Gas
Yeah.
station.
Oh, yeah.
And the one we lived in.
The one we lived on the left-hand side towards the What's the name?
By that Donaldson,
There was a gas station there once.
No.
Is that the house that used to have the wisteria growing on it? Had like an outside porch?
No, that was just across the street where the other gas station is now.
So, in other words,
well, could I interrupt here?
yes.
One day, I had some people visit. There was 2 men and a woman, and they said that their grandfather ran the mill.
Yeah.
And they came back.
The Donaldson Mill?
Yes,
Yeah, that's on Ipswich Road.
on
Yeah.
Ipswich Road. And they came back to look it over. I offered to have them in the house if they'd like to come and look around, but they declined. They just said they just wanted to see whatever happened to the mill and so forth.
Was this the house, Tom? That is supposedly the house that was down at the corner where the gas station, where one of the gas stations is now. That Essex Energy, I think. Does that look familiar at all, Alice?
I have to get glasses.
Take your time, so do I.
No, the house that we lived in, Tom's folks lived in. And his sister, Florence, and her twin were born in that house. She lost her twin.
Well, I never knew Florence was a twin.
Florence was a twin.
There was a sister. What was her name?
And Helen.
Helen.
Helen
Yeah.
is the oldest.
Yeah.
There's 2 years
That's right. I forgot about Helen.
Yeah, and
I'm looking for the house where McGregor was on that shoemaker's.
That house where McGregor lives now
Yeah.
is across the street, supposedly, from that.
And shoemaker house I'm talking about.
that certainly is different looking.
That can't be it then.
um,
We have been people have told us, and we inherited this picture, that this was the
What does
house.
it say in the back, Dot? Woodman Townhouse.
Boardman.
Corner of
Boardman.
1 and Ipswich Road, left side, Ipswich Road, on east of Route 1.
Boardman, isn't that over?
Gordon lived up in- and we knew Gordon. He lived in Rockland.
North Street?
North
yeah?
Street.
Yeah.
I kind of thought you.
In fact, that's where
We had a
where
big
the
barn.
Greens lived.
Yeah.
There was a big barn in the house that we lived in.
No, I don't remember.
Beautiful barn.
That wasn't the one where D. Francisco lived,
No,
was it?
he
No.
lived across the street.
No, he lived there.
Oh,
He was.
So maybe this picture that's incorrectly identified.
No, the one question I had, like I saw someone with Thomas Proctor off Perkins Street in 1914. The old Brad Street house was remodeled. Now that was the house on Perkins Row around the bend where the Wades lived. Is that what was the Brad Street house?
No, the Brad Street house, I say, was up at the automobile.
That was the
That was the
Off the
Brad
hill.
Street.
where
Oh.
Mr. Proctor lived and then Pete Cahooley lived.
But what connection was that? You know where I mean, like the big place around the corner there, beyond where the McClellans lived. That big house. Yeah.
Oh, didn't
Perkins Road.
Gene
Around
White
the corner.
McClellan lived in the inn, on the
At
end.
that other end, but coming along when you're coming, say you're coming from Perkins Row, you go by McClellan's house and around the bend, that big house
On
right
the left.
there, on the left. Whose house was that?
It's got barns and things.
Barns and
All the
everything.
bands? Yeah. Well, that's
Now
where.
that was part of the Proctor
Oh, yeah, that's what,
estate,
that was the farm band, that farmhouse.
That was the farmhouse?
My father, I say, he had quite a few odd jobs too. I say when he first came there, he came there to work in the dairy.
Mhm.
And from the dairy, he worked with this. Mr. Proctor had an office on the Ipswich Road, the shoemaker house I'm talking about.
Right.
And my father used to work in there with him for a while and maintain it. Wallace Nealon's father,
Clarence.
Lawrence,
Yep.
he worked for Mr. Proctor, and he was there. And then later years, he went into Boston, to Mr. Proctor's office every month by train.
Clarence.
So
Well, he was an accountant by trade, as
That's
I
right.
recall.
That's right.
Not
Right.
He worked every day. For
He
Mr.
was smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as you're talking about Leland, his father was a carpenter for Yates Guilford, and he worked most of the time at Proctor's estate as a carpenter.
So Mr. Proctor really hired, did have quite a few people lived in Topsfield in
Oh,
his
yeah.
employ.
Well, there was 25 houses on the estate. I say, from Camp Mead Road, from North Street down to the Lawrence estate, and then from Perkins Road, just beyond where Mr. Stewart lived. That was, he had a whole house there, and he owned all the land right straight through, I say, to High Street, Topsfield. And then all this property through here, just up behind it, we would call it Press Estate. Press, where Bertha's father, mother lived in later years.
Yeah. That was known as the Press Estate?
It used to be Press.
I didn't know that.
Sure, that just
And then
this the picture that we have in one of our volumes showing all of the Proctor estate. It shows Camp Meeting Road, that whole area in this book.
You know,
the whole of us say, whole of Great Hill, everything's on. He owned, let's see, he owned Perkins Road, I see, down around Perkins Road, over to the Lawrence estate, up around, all up through here, until, and then, and practically it all was fenced in. I remember when they had a crew just digging post holes.
But you think
Oh,
he was
yeah.
too.
The post holes, I believe, came in by freight car, flat car. And then all that.
So he owned all the way Howlett Street, all that
Yep.
area in through there,
Yep.
every bit of it. Was he very active in town affairs, Tom?
He could have been years ago. I mean, no. He was interested in the town, yes. And I believe he'd have done more on the school property.
Yes.
Tell us,
If-
do you recall
Tell
much
that
of that?
if
Tell
he
us
had-
about that.
I understand he was interfered in.
We always heard as kids that he wanted to build the school for
Right.
the town, if
That's
they would
right.
call it the Proctor School.
Mary Proctor, wasn't that his mother's name? It seemed to me my mother used to say that he wanted it named after his mother. But I don't
forget
know
what
if
his
that's right.
mother's first name was.
I wonder if it tells him here.
And then whatever happened,
The town
there
wouldn't
seemed to
have
be
that.
some kind of a problem. The town
There's
refused.
conflict there somewhere, yes.
Yeah, there was a problem.
Yeah.
And whether the town refused him or got him angry, I don't know.
Well, that's why we always told.
And then the school wound up being called the Proctor School.
yes.
So
His
we
mother's
paid
name
for the
was
school.
Emma, so that
He
could
would have
been
built it for
Emma.
nothing.
Emma.
Yeah, he was the
That's
youngest son
Good
of Thomas
name.
Emerson Proctor and
name.
Emma Howe Proctor.
He was an Emerson.
Well, I don't know who did publish this book.
This was written by C. Lawrence Bond. This is his
Yes,
book on
and
top
that wasn't
picture of
all
Mr. Proctor.
It wasn't.
There's a lot in that book isn't accurate.
What we should do sometime is have somebody read that knows, and there aren't too many left that know, but someone like Tom go through that book
See if there are
and note the inaccuracies and write them down so that we could have them. Because sometime we might want to republish that, or sometime perhaps the Audubon people might want to do a little editing and find out where the inaccuracies are. Do you have a copy of that at home,
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Of number 32.
I
Yeah, the one that has the
Yeah.
picture right there.
Maybe sometime.
no, I don't know.
I know
And I don't
you
remember
have
that
Mr.
picture.
Do we have
Why
an
don't you
extra
look up
copy of that?
the dot They're all in order.
Okay, I will
Write them
when
on
we
the
get
shelf.
through.
Yeah.
Then maybe sometime you could take that home and go through it.
Does that look like the dining room? That looks
We
like
have
the
some
house we-
folders with old typewritten pages
Okay.
that I should have brought with me, but
Oh,
and I'm wondering whether it's the
That's
same
good.
text as this book.
yeah.
I think
This
it's
has his
Mr. Vaughn.
picture, and then it has a write-up about Mr. Proctor.
No.
And this was
I don't have a
published in
No, but they-
1974.
Volume what,
Well, it's the
1933?
volume 32. I know I can see it right up there, Doc, before the, see where the new ones are, the white ones. I think it's just before that, and I think we had quite a few of these extra copies.
Yes and no.
Right there.
I really don't know. I really
You
don't
would say
Yeah.
1974 on it.
Why don't you take that, Alice, take it home, and maybe if you and Tom have some time sometime, you could review that, and any glaring inaccuracy, you could draw to our attention, write it down and give us a buzz, because we'd love to know where it's wrong.
Yeah, the article in the front is about him. The photograph, and then a write-up, and then a map of the Proctor estate is what this is
I
here.
never
That's in
remember
there.
looking like that. He was old when I knew.
Boy,
Tom was on the board of registrars, so I had I know 1 year I went around and got the listing of the women. That was,
Oh, yeah.
that was 39.
yes.
Did you have much to do with the estate, Alice? Other than take care of your husband and all that?
One thing I would always be interested in, going over when we used to walk over, of course that was our pastime on Sundays, walking over to the Proctor estate and going to see
The rockery.
the rockery, but the greenhouses. I don't remember really ever seeing any photos that we have in any collection that has pictures of that. By any chance, did you have any photos of the house there on the, any of that area? See, I don't think people took pictures in those days. Like,
See, we lived there 8 years after we were married,
yeah.
and it took a war, prices going up, to realize that you had to get out and do something else.
Yeah. But it's just too bad that, because in my mind I can remember, we used to take pictures of the rockery. I've got pictures, but they're all in black and white, so that it's nothing like what they would be if you had taken them today.
And you talk about the rockery. All them rockery, all them bushes, where the blossoms come up,
The rhododendron?
Yeah.
Oh, those are beautiful.
when they died off, there used to be most of them, 3 of us down here. That's another place I used to work. We used to have to snap off.
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness.
I have one bush and I snapped them off.
I know.
When we go in there in the morning to work, because they're doing stuff there. The mosquitoes, talk about mosquitoes.
I bet they were terrible.
There's some heavy, but they used to buy citronella in the gallon cans. And we used to take it on a cloth, saturate that stuff all over our house, and put it on mosquitoes. And I don't know,
You have to snap off every one.
we used to snap off them.
You know, I've often said, my sister does this to our
Yeah.
one roto.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
know.
I've often said, that is a waste of time. What do you think they used to do over at the rockery?
We did it. We did it.
Now
See?
we know.
Now you know
Is
why
that
they've
bad?
been
That's
so long.
something.
Between the rhododendron and the azalea bushes over there, it was beautiful.
Wasn't it?
Oh,
It was
it
gorgeous.
Now, someone said to me, Tom, that there was a railroad, a miniature railroad, and I've forgotten who asked me.
Noam Isla
No,
asked you about it because he thought he read it somewhere.
Yeah. A little small railroad that went through parts of the estate. Does that ring a bell with you at all?
Now, where was the little school that Mrs. Town?
In other words, you know where the Stewart School is.
Yes.
Yes.
That was Mr. Proctor's place.
And where the Stewart School was a school?
No, that was really what they call it. The center of the town, was it or something? Was it?
Oh, you mean when the center of town, wasn't it on that side of the turn Route 1 at one time?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the first meeting house was, if my reading is correct. Yeah.
Why, I wonder, I had a friend that I knew from my father's friends. Town, by the name of Town, Georgetown was the name of the. She married a Town. His wife was a Town, and she said they had a little schoolhouse, and that down in that area.
Down in that area where the center of the town used to be, Alice?
Well, I didn't know it was the
Was
center of the town.
What was that school
Well, there
that
wasn't
the one there by the Lawrence Estate? That there was one school was in that area.
I think that's the one.
No,
that
no,
the
no, I mean,
No,
I know what you're
But that's
saying.
another one. And that
Wasn't
house
that
was
moved?
Yeah, that was moved.
yes, that was moved.
Yeah.
Uh,
Where was that moved from?
Because in some of the old receipts, remember when we were doing receipts?
remember
They
that.
had all the
They
different
had the
I
different
remember they
schools,
said
like
the,
the East School,
carpet
the West
shop.
School.
Like it was down beyond the farm barns, where Wallace Lee's grandfather and Clarence Castle. Clarence Castle worked for Guilford, but he worked steady for Mr. Proctor. And he came to work every month, 5.5 days a week. So, moving through the city.
Now, did they live on the Proctor estate, or did
No,
they live
no,
where
no.
the castles eventually wound
That's
up?
right, that's right.
Where was the mill over there that you spoke about, Tom?
The mill,
Yeah.
I'm talking about,
Where
with
was
it, with
that?
the,
Would that be the, was that
near,
the
no, it
Donald's?
was near the rock garden.
Right, it's where the Mill Brook comes.
That's right.
The top of Mill Brook. There's a wetland with a pond, and right now it's Mr. Fields.
And I say the
estate.
blacksmith shop
There's
was
a,
also
there's
down
a mill
that
wheel
way.
there.
Oh, is it?
The blacksmith shop was down there near the rock garden too. In other words, in back of the farm barn, there's a road that went down past, right to the, past the blacksmith shop, to the rock garden.
Oh, so that's how they got there. Because I was thinking that was quite a distance.
They tell me that, they're talking about a school, and where the school comes from, I don't know. But the carpenter shop was a school, they moved to there. I don't know where it came from.
The carpenter shop where Guilford worked in Castle.
That's right.
Yeah. Gee, that would be something to kind of see if we could find any information on that school. Because there were, in the very old records of Topsfield, we found bills for like school number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And some of them we can't identify where they were. I'm sure they were just like one room. And we can't really identify where they were.
And
Did
the
Mr. Proctor-
teachers would have to live around with the different people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can imagine the ones
Like
that
a month at a time.
taught at the school probably were the ones that
Yeah.
established the school.
Sure.
Did Mr. Proctor do much entertaining, Tom?
I say he could have done it in his earlier years,
Yeah.
he did. But in later years, I'd say once, twice a month or something.
I think that would exaggerate.
No, I get
He had a cook and all that in
Oh,
the
yes.
house.
Yeah. He had a
When
cook.
did Pete Kilhooly come there?
Peter Cooley,
Yeah.
he was awful. He was awesome. He, do you remember, you know where Gus Tillman then lived?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Right. That's where Peter Cooley first lived.
Oh, never knew that.
And I say, we lived down in the corner, on the Shoemaker's corner, on the left-hand side.
Opposite where Gus Hillman lived?
Opposite where Gus lived. No, beyond Gus.
Beyond, on the same
Beyond.
side.
Gus lived here, and we
And yet
lived
they
down
can't
here.
identify this
I
house?
can't seem to identify that.
It looks something like our house, as I've been studying it. That window there in the dining room, and then you had the front hall, and you went into the living room. That seems as though,
You know
like,
those,
and that even,
Shutters, like they have inside of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Well,
there was
they
a
had that in the house we
bar.
lived in.
What about that?
You could close it and the heat
No,
would stay in the
this
house.
was
Sure.
a great
Oh,
home,
oh.
so, and it was there when Tom's folks lived down to the corner.
My folks lived there.
in the same house that we lived in.
Yeah.
Right.
His sister was fine.
So the house,
You
what
can't
about
pick
that?
out that
That's
at all.
too small? That's a barn, Alice. That looks good size.
Well, if it was when we were there, see there's a room. We go right straight
Some of those
See,
things.
with some of the other buildings over there.
What?
I've had some
I know, that's
things
the
that
big pine
mention
tree on
about
that.
things that were built
The
and
big
stuff.
pine tree.
Oh, the big
But
one.
there is a sign there. You haven't been able to make out what the
No,
sign says.
no.
I remember the
Yeah.
house we lived in there.
It was a beautiful house. What a crime when they took
The staircase was all cherry. Beautiful staircase. I wish that we bought it before it was torn down.
Isn't that a shame?
What was the inside of Mr. Proctor's house like, Tom? Was it beautiful, the wood and all that?
And you talk about air conditioning today, that house you could go in. In other words, on a day really hot, to use the telephone to call outside, we had to go into the house. And we used to have all the shades pulled. And that house was just as cool as an air conditioned house. Beautiful. Very nice house. Very nice house.
Was it, I don't remember, was it it wasn't a stone house.
What?
A stone house?
No.
It was,
No,
in my
no,
mind, I
no,
remember like a red or a dark red building. But that's all I don't know if that's a true
Now, it
remembrance.
was close to the greenhouses.
Yeah, his house was
The
in front of
green-
the greenhouse.
Yeah, the house was there, and then we'd
Greenhouse,
walk by
this
and
house
we'd go
was there,
in.
The farm, the stable was here.
Yeah,
The greenhouse
and
was
then
right
the
off.
greenhouse,
In
yeah.
fact, the stable and the greenhouse was connected.
Yeah.
It certainly has some beautiful flowers.
We were very fortunate growing up that we were able to enjoy all the flowers and things to go through the greenhouses and the rockery, and it was
Well,
just
he was
beautiful.
generous with the town. Every
Yes.
graduation, they'd bring
yeah.
out the palms
That's
that he
To
would.
decorate the stage.
Yep,
That's right.
and that was all due to Mr. Proctor.
Yeah.
So he was a very generous
Oh, yes, he
person
was.
when it came to the town. What was he like to work for?
We didn't have too much to bother with us. We didn't bother us much. Because most of all his orders were all sent to Mr. Marlborough, who
I
was
didn't
the
Oh, I remember
Yeah.
that
who
man.
was the superintendent.
Yeah. James Marlborough, wasn't it?
His
Was
shop
he
man,
like,
He was a bachelor that lived with his sister.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
And they lived just beyond the farmhouse. And then we were talking about the circle.
Yeah.
Around that circle, when you went in there, on the right hand side, there was a chicken house. Used to be years ago. And they had big long pens. And they had, beside the chickens, they had geese, ducks, peacocks, pheasants. In fact, they actually had some geese too. You remember the geese used to chase us? We tantalized them. But the peacocks, on the big farm down there, we were talking about, there was a steeple way up top. And where the weather vane was on top of it. And you go into the yard, that peacock would be way up on the top there, and you'd fly down on it. Of course, that was years ago.
Have they taken that steeple? I don't remember seeing that. They must have taken that down. Probably couldn't afford to keep it up.
You should probably ride over sometime and see if it's there. It
I
seems to
intend
me
to.
there is something there, and I kind
When
of.
you go by there, Jan,
Yeah.
Jan Jansen lives on Perkins Road.
In
Do you
fact,
ever notice that steeple?
Not too far from the old farm.
Yeah.
So we'll have to check that out, Jan.
And it really looks like a farm.
in fact,
Yes, it does.
Up there where the steeple was, they had a lot of pigeons. And that's what the pigeons were.
Were they racing pigeons or
No, I think they were ordinary pigeons.
just pigeons?
Well, that's a special deal.
Yeah.
Unlikely that to be served as guests.
Oh,
Really?
You know,
Yeah.
I almost said that, but as a joke.
No,
I swab under
no.
glass.
Because
But
I
that was-
lived where the old Fred Crosby was in Dennis, and that was their specialty.
Now the Ferncroft Inn where the reservoir is now?
No,
No.
you know where the Radisson.
Madison is?
You know, with the Sheraton Towers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that was all my folks.
Their folks' property.
One time.
What was their name, Alice? What was their name? Your name before you were married?
McDonald.
Oh, McDonald.
Yes, we own 45 acres in that area.
Yeah.
And so, but it went through many hands, and we did not make out like somebody did.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was the old Ferncroft Inn down the street, and it was in its heyday when we first moved. First bought the land.
Was that on Route 1?
No, you'd go off Route 1 and go down Nickel Street, and then you went into Maple Street of Middleton, and that's where the old Ferncroft Inn was. And that was quite a place.
Used to be called Nickel Street.
Yeah.
Nickel Street used to run across Route 1.
Two sides, off the turnpike. And my father went down and said, well, now, Ferncroft Inn used to be quite a place. Why don't you call that side, the Middleton side, call it Ferncroft Road.
Yeah, Ferncroft Road.
Oh.
But they used to have, getting back to the pigeons, they used to have like a garage there, and on top of the garage was the pigeon house. They raised the pigeons, so, and that's what their specialty was. When you went there,
Oh, the squaw.
Squaw.
Yeah,
Yes.
the grass.
and that was quite
Was it
nice.
good?
Yeah.
Well, I would never eat it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was quite a place, a dine and dance place. And our house was the only house on that side of the road until you got down there. And we did have one episode that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We had a couple come to the door, the front door, my mother answered the door, and they wanted to come in. And my mother said, you're in the wrong place. But I'm Gracie, don't you remember me?
You remember
Sonnenberg
other than you,
had his training place down there.
Gus
He
Sonnenberg.
had Gus Sonnenberg.
wrestling,
Well, I know the name, but
Yeah.
I know that's, yeah.
flying tackle. That was his specialty.
Oh, there's
That
a
was
lot
his
of
training
history.
place.
When we get together, there's a lot of history.
Yeah.
When you go over to Ferncroft, we are digressing from Mr.
I
Proctor,
know.
but when you do go over to Ferncroft, the Sheraton Tower, whatever they call it,
Mm,
there is that side road.
That's right. Ferncroft, the Sheraton, it's up the hill.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
going
Keep
down
on,
that
they'll come
road.
out to Midland.
Right. And is that
That's
Ferncroft Road?
This place is on.
that's Ferncroft Road.
now.
as long as you're in Danvers.
Right.
Then it is, what do they call it now?
Is it? It's part of. Is it not Locust Street?
Yes.
Yes, it
Locust
is. It's
Street.
Locust
Locust
Street.
Street, Midland.
The funny part of this is, we as kids, we skied, we sliding, we used to roll. My father used to keep the cattle, his cows there.
Probably where the golf course
Pasture.
is.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
but I've had a granddaughter that went to work up there last summer vacation.
At the hotel?
At the hotel, and we had to go up and pick her up one day, and I was amazed how high the land went.
It is high.
It
that's
never
right.
seemed that high as youngsters. We used to get the top and slide down towards the turnpike.
Yeah. It's been nice.
Always.
Yeah.
We had our own skate and 2 ponds to choose.
Now, was the turnpike paved at that time, Alice?
Oh,
The turnpike was always,
I don't remember when it was paved.
well, we lived in West Peabody when we first came down to the country, and from Boston, and it seems to me it was just a one vehicle, or mostly a horse and carriage, really. I can remember going to Sunday school, horse and carriage. But it was a very narrow road to begin with. And then they, look how many times they came through and widened. In fact, they took our property. We had property on 12-room home.
1950, they took the
So
first.
they came through and took us out and just demolished everything on where we were. I mean, it was farmland, but it wasn't any farmland.
And then they moved across the street. They bought a house that was up Route 1 farther towards the state hospital.
Yeah, in that area, as you come
That
down.
area.
Oh, yes.
And they moved it down, and they were just going to more or less repair what had to be repaired. But when they got through with that place, that house was completely tore apart.
Everything.
Everything. The addition added on it. It was all completely, all brand new. And I mean, to say the bath, electrical system, walls, everything was on. And then when they took it,
66.
when they took the place,
When they took the place last? No. We bought our house 66.
66.
They came in and they
Anyway,
just 10 acres of land.
State acre land. We were talking about moving the house back in the field. Now, at that time, LaBelle had a gravel pit, which was back in the house and all that. So we took the smart idea, and we on that land finished the gravel. Other than 3 acres. And we were doing all right, and all of a sudden the state wanted the gravel to stop it. Stop us. But LaBelle, they kept up, keeping it open. And the 3 acres of land, I say back, we wanted to move the house back. But they turned around and landlocked it, and all they'd give us was $100 an acre, $300.
So that we've lived on the turnpike enough different places to see.
Yeah, she started in West Cleveland.
Yeah, I was 2 years old when we came down from Cambridge, and we have seen a lot.
Well, you know, in thinking about demolishing now, you said that Mr. Proctor had about 25 houses over there in that area. But in my mind, like we all know the big old farmhouse down there where Jan lives, and the Audubon, and the Poor Farm, and a few places like that,
McClellan's live.
and where the McCollums live. But I couldn't possibly come near 25 houses, so somebody must have demolished an awful lot of property.
The way I started is, you know where Ford lived? Ford's place on
Bale Road.
no, up there.
Oh, I know, on Ipswich Road.
Across the Ford. Across the street.
Across where the kid, that house belonged to Mr. Proctor.
That's
Across
right.
the house
Campbell
where
lived there at the end.
Priscilla, yes.
Campbell lived.
Priscilla and Bill
Then you
Campbell's,
get out,
Bill
down
Campbell's
beyond
house.
Oh, yeah.
the estate that was on the left-hand side. Used to be the Thomas estate. On the left-hand side.
Is that where Mrs. Cowan used to live?
That's right.
The
Cowan
Cowan estate?
Then you come to North Street.
Yeah.
You corner North Street on the right-hand side. There's a house there. Then you go in North Street farther, where near Borden Lane.
Yep.
There's a house there.
Yeah.
That was 2 houses. Then you come back out again, and you get down, I say, Ipswich Road. On the left-hand side, where Hillman's lived, many years DeFrancisco lived. Across the street, there's I believe somebody's got a garage or something. It used to be Koenig. He bought that. He lived there.
Was an unfinished house.
Unfinished, and he was fixing it all over for us when we got married. But at that time, I say the big house we were talking about, we did move in. It was all fit living already, so he moved us, and they was going to move us back in their place when they finished, but they never finished it. All right, so we lived there. Then across the street, I say, was where McGregor lived. Then the big shoemaker house was on the corner there.
Took that down.
That's the house in the Wisteria.
Uh-huh.
That was beautiful.
Then you
And
got
I used to go over to that.
Then you got
house and
where
find
Miller
all
lived, by the
things.
spring.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Right.
Miller.
Yeah,
Across
it
the
was a
street was
beautiful
another
house.
house. Up the street farther,
Never finished.
there was another house.
On Ipswich Road going down, Tom? On Ipswich Road going down?
And I'm back, going back up in the window.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
of course, on Averill Street is where the old Mr. DeFrancisco.
That's right, that's
I remember that.
All right.
Oh,
Then you come out of
And
there.
Proctor on that too?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Then you come out of there. And you got the Andrews House, the antique house.
French
like this.
Andrews on Howard Street.
Top of the hill there by the Pentecostal place, and right as that's where White lived.
Yeah, I remember that. Did Proctor own the French Andrews house at any time?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of my cousins lived there.
Sure, he had it all.
In 1919, it was restored.
Sure.
And also the Averill Wiles Pearly House on Ridge Street, wherever that was. Ridge. And it says Tom Perkins Street, shoe shop at the Josiah Perkins farm, removed to the Averill Wiles Pearly House and connected as an L. They were forever moving.
We're always moving.
Forever.
I never realized that Mr. Proctor did at one time own the French Andrews house.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, that would be right where his property is,
Oh, yeah.
but
One of my cousins lived there who came from Canada and worked for him at one time.
over at the Rockery Nundy or
Yeah,
just
the
worked for
Rockery.
him?
Now another thing, Harry Shoemaker on the Turnpike,
Sure.
the carriage house, his carriage house was removed
That's right.
and remodeled into a dwelling house.
I think
Oh,
that.
where did it go?
I think
I don't know, that was in
It was before we
1914.
lived in.
No, I remember. The Shoemaker house is what Father used to live
Yes,
in.
but when you lived in the house that we did, the shoemaker, what? Was somebody
No.
over in the shoemaker
No,
house?
it was the Gregors, Frank and Gregor's brother Percy lived there.
Oh, somebody did live there.
Now, in 1922, Thomas Proctor cornered Ipswich Street and the Turnpike, the barn burned. That was
That's
in
right.
22.
That's right.
So there's quite a,
So we did take down quite a lot.
In other words, you know, he had his own water system. And back away with the car, what do you call it? It used to be Pentecost, and then there was the Marino.
oh yeah,
I mean,
oh, it is,
he had down back of the
Isn't that
farmhouse.
what Skeffington's called?
They had a big
Farmhouse on Perkins Road.
they had a big pump house there. And it was out the artesian wells. And he had his own system, hydrants and stuff in there, farms and the greenhouse and all that. And the big pump house. I mean, they used to pump from there up. I don't know, up and down, one of the up by the Marino there. Had a big
Yeah.
thing up there.
That's quite a distance.
Oh, yeah. That's where all the water
So the water came from Marino,
back in the
back of Marino, and then it had to go to Mr. Proctor's big house. Then it must have had to go to the Audubon, where Gil Julio,
No.
whoever lived.
Let's see how that goes.
I mean, that's quite a
Yeah,
system.
that's right, yeah, that's right.
And then Jean White, where she lived on the corner there,
Yeah.
did it cover his
cover
different farmhouses?
Across the street, what did it go across the street? We don't remember.
Isn't that what Skeffington bought at
what's
one
that,
time?
that water system that he had?
What
Is that
That was it.
Skeffington?
that was Proctor's
That's
water
what he bought.
system?
That's what he
Yeah, it
bought,
must have
yeah.
been, he but something
Did you
there
know that, Stina? I didn't know that.
because I didn't think of it until he had some water system that he supplied the
Yeah.
people there with, so it must have been.
They had a lot of trouble with it. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And then he wanted the
We
town
had a
to-
well. Ours was well one we
Yeah, down on Route 1.
Yeah.
we were.
Oh, I think we all had wells.
We all had wells in
Yeah.
it.
Which was good, I guess.
At least they were pure.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
weren't filled with
I guess so.
chlorine that you have to.
Oh, God, yes.
We have
Dams now, they started
in from Beverly.
a while ago to keep the supply up in Danvers, the reservoir. They hooked into Beverly. Or they always hooked into Beverly and Peabody. But they've opened up now, so we get water from Beverly to keep the supply up in Danvers. And Beverly uses much more chlorine in the water than Danvers does. And right away, I worked in the water department in Danvers. And I can pick up the chlorine, just open up the faucet and take it from up. I can't drink the water. But now, they've gone back more or less shut off coming in from Beverly. So the water is better now.
You left Mr. Proctor's employ, Tom.
Uh,
When did you leave there?
42.
1942.
Walking.
Yeah. And you went to work over at GE?
GE.
Did he used to take the train much into Boston?
Huh?
Did he used to take the train much into Boston, Mr. Proctor, from
No,
downtown?
most of the time he was driven it.
Oh,
In fact, that was Peter Cahoon's job.
that
Most
was
of
his job.
That's how he started with him as chauffeur?
Yeah. And then later years, he was more or less a companion. of
Yeah.
Mr. Proctor.
And he seemed to become like a manager or whatever you call it.
He never interfered with us. No, as you say, how jealous Mr. Palumbi was. I can remember back, they raised a lot of white Holland turkeys. In fact, over to Francisco, Jimmy Francisco, which is Louis' father, and Mrs. Marlborough, more or less took care of them. All they had a bunch of turkeys. And they used to kill them around Thanksgiving time. And they used to give a basket of turkey and cranberries and something else in the basket to everybody on the estate, all the help. They also gave most of the politicians here in Topsfield and the doctors, they also got a turkey. And he also sent them down to more or less in Dallas and Wayne to the politicians.
You know what I remember when Tom gave his notice that he was getting through, Mr. Proctor said to him, "Do you realize you'll be called up for what? It was the
Sure,
law
yeah.
that why he
I was one of the first ones pulled in the ball.
Were you?
Yeah.
And he said there's going to be a war. Now this was before it was really a stated fact
Yeah.
that we were going to get into it. And he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the ones that control things, I think.
Was he upset when you gave your notice, Tom?
He wanted.
Was he, Mr. Proctor, upset when you?
Oh, yes.
He said that he would still take care of his family if Tom had to go.
She could live there and whatnot.
Yeah, I could still live in the house.
So he was very
Well,
generous.
that's another thing he used to do, I remember, I mean, I think it was before my time, my father did. At Christmas time, he used to give gold piece, $5 gold piece.
Oh, wow.
And I, up to a few years ago, I think my sister had one of the gold pieces
Okay.
from my father had. But then it, no, she was
Feel free.
no.
Can anybody think of any other questions that they'd like to ask Alice or Tom?
I'd like you to hold up the picture so I can close in on that.
Want Alice to hold it?
Doesn't matter.
We'll both hold it.
Okay.
No, we
Can
had,
you get that, Pam?
we had some good days.
Tom, do you recall if there was any logging or any mill work done on the Avils Island?
What's that?
Did they cut any lumber on Avils Island? Was there any
Yes.
lumber?
Yes. It was more or less firewood stuff.
Firewood.
Used to cut it, and it was stored behind where the Stewart School is now.
Yeah.
And they were going to use very little. I mean, he did stock his own place, but then it was sold out, so somebody came in and bought it out. But they did that for quite a few years. That's where he used to put the help more or less in the winter.
What did he use that wood? Did they use wood in the big house to heat with, or what
No
did they?
more fireplace and that stuff. No, in the
No central heat?
oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
You should probably use coal.
Coal?
Coal, huh?
Oh, shoot. In fact, that was another thing. Years ago, the coal came into Jackman's
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Man.
Right.
Used to have two big carloads coming in. And they had they'd get down with two teams, about two horses, four horses, and two teams would get them to pick up the coal.
Down at Jackman's.
The jackets off the cars.
Yeah, the big bins out there.
Yeah.
I can remember that. Yeah.
And they used to put coal in every house on the estate.
Every house.
Yeah.
So in other words, he heated your homes and
Not in that time.
Well, I mean, in my time.
Yeah, and Tom's.
Also, wood. Did I say the wood
Oh.
was all split and everything else. And then all wood was going to do. And actually, years ago, he was really generous.
so you got $100 a month,
Oh,
but you also got
That's
quite a
right.
bit in fringe benefits.
And
Like,
my cousin worked down at Stein's piano place in Beverly. And he used to, well, they had to buy the pay for their own house rent and everything else, food and else. And that was another thing. We more or less got a lot of vegetables.
I'm sure you did with what he had.
We got our milk, and more or less vegetables.
A nice
For
spot up.
$100. So at that time, that $100 was all we got with the rent and everything else. It was really worth something. Really.
That's right.
It really was one of the lucky.
I guess that I can't think of anything more. Anybody else have any other questions they want to ask? Mandy or Jean or Steve?
Just one more. There's a cellar hole down Brad Street Lane. If you go past the front side of the Brad Street house, down Brad Street Lane, there's a cellar hole off to the left. Do you recall what that building would be?
No, I think that was. I don't know what happened to that place. I think that was gone in there.
Brad Street Lane is what goes up to the Audubon?
It's typically it's the driveway as you drive up, and then it
Yeah.
continues straight in front of the
Right.
house.
Yeah.
It goes down the other side of Brad Street Hill, sort of perpendicular to the Rockery or
Right.
Ipswich
Yeah,
River.
rock at it, yeah.
And then
I don't
there is an
really
old
know.
cellar hole on the left.
No, I don't know.
But-
I remember where the cellar hole was, but I really don't remember the name
Yeah.
of it either.
Okay. So it was a cellar hole.
So it was a cellar hole in your time too then?
Yeah.
When Bertha Wall gave that talk to the Historical Society and she talked about her time then, do we have a copy of that here in our records? We really should have. And also...
Was
you
it
know,
taped?
No, but it was all written down. I mean, I thought that they all had that in writing, the same as Ruth Val and
I've never seen anything
Ruth
like that.
Tronrood. I'll ask Gracie if she might have a copy of that, because that was very interesting. She told about how they used to go to school. Did they, in the winter, go on a sleigh to school?
Yep.
Yeah.
Talk about a sleigh. When I was looking into the stadium, I was at the funeral bosses, and I had Mr. Proctor with me. That's the time he did go in by train. And in other words, you had two different kinds of sleds. You had the pung and a cutter.
Hung in a what?
Cutter.
Cutter. Cutter was the one that small runners, more like you see out in the lawns and stuff during Christmas time.
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
And he had on his fur coat. And I don't know, on the way somewhere, I tipped him off. Anyway, he had something. You know,
You mean the thing tipped over?
well, only very little runners.
Did you get fired?
No. It didn't.
Probably his fur coat cushioned him.
No, I used to go down this road here quite often. Started for a while there I used to have to come down and get the mail and the paper in the morning, and do the errands. We sent me to the cook used to call up at the different stores. That time before had the
Oh,
grocery
yeah,
store.
yeah.
Titcomb
Titcomb,
had the other
Just
store.
gonna say
Titcomb was
Titcom's
neat.
Market.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Sure. And she'd call up and I'd have to pick up the stuff.
That old road was good. We used to walk there all the
We
time.
used to
when
ski
it was
down that old road, not anymore.
Oh, there used to be a place there that up there you could hardly get through. It said muddy and stuff.
Yeah,
Yes.
in the springtime it was
Right
mud,
there.
muddy.
Yeah.
And then I used to ride up and down there with the horses and take them down to the blacksmith shop down there. David's blacksmith shop.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the great big barn that was right here.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
That was taken down by somebody, I don't know who. Probably put up somewhere.
Whoever bought the property and put up the house, those
Yeah.
houses.
Well, there used to be a house that Bertha lived there over here. We're talking about now. It used to be a bigger house.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, we have pictures of it.
That's
Beautiful. Beautiful. According to the
Why
pictures.
did they take part of that off?
That's just the servants.
They say
quarters
what's
that was
left is
Yeah,
that
that's
was
right.
just the servants.
Right. What did they do?
And
with
now
the-
where the garage was, they got a house down there. Down the
Yes.
hollow.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
used to
they
be
made-
the garage.
Yeah, they made that into a
I
house.
can remember years ago after the place was closed up before Mr. Parker, well, he bought it, but there's nobody in there. And in the garage, we had to go in to clean it up. And I don't know what press business he was really in, but I remember we picked up gallon cans of polish, car polish. And it's mostly banana oil. You could smell bananas all in it. And it was really good polish. We all used it. Up around the greenhouse, the whole fellows worked with the greenhouse. Oh, yeah, we had some good times.
Well, I want to thank Alice and Tom for coming, and we had a wonderful, whatever time it is, has been an hour and a half or so. I guess more than an hour and a half. And I think they probably could go on for a lot
Oh, yeah.
longer.
He didn't think he'd remember about it.
Boy, he's got a wonderful memory.
Bring that up to date. if there
Maybe we
are any
could
changes.
schedule a follow-up. I think you've got enough material to do that, Tom.
When we went to school, when I was in high school, you know, I played baseball and stuff, that stuff. Teddy Kennedy, Butch Rock, Warren Smith, all that bunch. Anyway, I was quite a runner. So I'd come out back to school. I'd give my sister the books on the bus. And the time that she got home, I was just going into the yard running.
Okay.
And she was stopping out front of the house.
Is it alright to ask you how old you are now?
How old I am now?
Don't ask me how old I am, but
I am just 28.
Yeah.
I'm 82.
82.
So you got a wonderful memory.
That's
Oh,
right.
I wish I could remember things like that. Really, it's been wonderful.
But it's good to talk about it and bring back
Yeah.
a lot of different memories.
Now I think that we're going to be able. I think Jan has told me that we're going to be able to send the Pierces a copy of this so that they can. Do you have a VCR?
Yeah, my family.
Great, and so you'll be able to see it, listen to it, and all that good stuff.
And say, huh?
And maybe it will trigger your mind to remember other things. And
Well,
I'm not
remember
kidding
all
when I say
I
we
remember
might
other
have a
things,
follow-up.
other things I wouldn't want to say.
That's right.
It was great. Yeah. So thank you very much, and I guess that winds up our session. Thank you, Jan.